I was staring at my phone in complete disbelief when I realized that the HOA president of Meadowbrook Commons in Scottsdale, Arizona, had just stolen my garden hose right off my front spigot. The notification from my video doorbell had buzzed at exactly 3:15 in the afternoon, and there she was on the screen, clear as day, unscrewing my brand new hose and walking away with it coiled over her shoulder like she owned the damn thing. My name is Tyler Graves, and I had moved into this supposedly upscale community 6 months ago, thinking it would be a peaceful place to settle down after my divorce. The house was perfect, a 3-bedroom ranch style with a decent yard, and the neighborhood looked well maintained. What I didn't realize was that the HOA here was run by a woman named Patricia Morrison, who treated the entire development like her personal kingdom. I watched the video again, just to make sure I wasn't losing my mind. Nope, there she was in her typical uniform of khaki capris and a polo shirt with the HOA logo embroidered on it. Her blonde hair pulled back in that severe ponytail she always wore. She walked right up to my house at 3:15, looked around like she was checking if anyone was watching, then bent down and started unscrewing my hose from the spigot. The whole thing took her maybe 2 minutes, and then she was gone, walking down the sidewalk toward her house 3 doors down with my $50 hose. I felt my blood pressure rising as I saved the video and immediately texted my neighbor, Marcus, who lived next door. Marcus had warned me about Patricia when I first moved in, but I had brushed it off as typical neighborhood drama. Now I was wishing I had listened more carefully. Marcus texted back within seconds. "Dude, what did you do to piss her off?" I replied that I had no idea, which was the truth. Sure, I had gotten a notice last week about my trash cans being visible from the street for more than 12 hours after pickup, but I had moved them the same day. That couldn't possibly warrant hose theft. My phone rang. It was Marcus. "Tyler, man, you need to be careful with her," he said as soon as I answered. "Patricia is nuts. Last year she tried to fine the Hendersons for having the wrong shade of beige on their window treatments. The Hendersons, they had lived here for 15 years. She stole my hose, Marcus. I have it on video. What am I supposed to do? Just let her keep it? I'm just saying, document everything. She has connections on the HOA board and they back her up on everything. Everything. Steve Carmichael tried to fight a fine last year and she made his life hell for 6 months. I thanked Marcus for the warning and hung up, then watched the video one more time. This was insane. I was a grown man, a software engineer who had just wanted a quiet place to live, and now I was dealing with hose theft by the HOA president. I decided to handle it like an adult. I would walk down to her house, show her the video, and politely ask for my hose back. Simple, straightforward, no drama. That was my first mistake. I walked down to Patricia's house at 4 o'clock. Her home was immaculate, naturally. The lawn was cut in perfect diagonal lines, the flower beds were pristine, and her roses were in full bloom. Her roses. I noticed them immediately because they were massive, taking up most of her front yard. Red, pink, yellow, and white roses arranged in elaborate beds with little signs labeling each variety. I rang her doorbell and waited. After a moment, I heard footsteps, and then Patricia opened the door with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Tyler, what brings you by?" "Hi, Patricia. I think there might have been a misunderstanding. My garden hose went missing from my front spigot this afternoon, and my video doorbell caught you taking it. I'm sure it was just a mistake, but I'd like it back." Her expression didn't change at all. "A mistake? No, there's no mistake. That hose was in violation of HOA Regulations Section 7.3, subsection B. Garden equipment must not be visible from the street between the hours of 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. I confiscated it as per my authority as HOA president. I stared at her. You confiscated my hose. It was attached to my house. It's not like I left it lying in the yard. The regulations are clear. Visible garden equipment includes hoses attached to exterior spigots. You should have read your HOA handbook more carefully. Patricia, I need that hose. I just bought it last week. Can I please have it back? You can retrieve it at the next HOA board meeting on the 15th. We'll discuss your violation then and determine if you can have it returned or if it will need to be donated. Donated. It's my hose. You can't just take my property. Her smile vanished. I suggest you watch your tone, Tyler. The HOA board has the authority to enforce all community regulations. If you have a problem with that, you can submit a formal complaint in writing. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have things to do. She closed the door in my face. I stood there for a moment, stunned. Then I walked back home, pulled out my laptop, and spent the next 2 hours reading through the entire HOA handbook. I found section 7.3, subsection B. It did say that garden equipment shouldn't be visible from the street, but it also said that permanently attached fixtures like hoses on spigots were exempt from this rule. There was a specific exemption written right there in paragraph 4, so Patricia was wrong. She had violated the HOA's own rules by taking my hose. I printed out the relevant pages, highlighted the exemption, and drafted a formal email to the HOA board. I attached the video from my doorbell camera and requested an immediate return of my property. I sent it to all 5 board members, including Patricia, at 6:30 that evening. By 7 o'clock, Patricia had responded. Her email was short and cold. Your interpretation of section 7.3 is incorrect. The board will review this matter at our next meeting. Your hose will remain confiscated until then. Repeated challenges to board authority may result in additional fines. I called Marcus again. She's threatening me with fines now. I told you, man. She's unhinged. What are you going to do? I'm going to that board meeting on the 15th and I'm getting my hose back. That's 2 weeks away. I know. I'll buy another hose in the meantime, but I'm not letting this go. The next morning, I woke up to another notification from my video doorbell. 6 a.m., and Patricia was back at my house. I grabbed my phone and watched in real time as she stood on my front walk, took several photos of my house with her phone, then left. What the hell was she doing now? An hour later, I received an email with the subject line, HOA violation notice. Patricia had cited me for having a small crack in my driveway that needed to be repaired within 30 days, or I would face a fine of $200. The crack had been there when I bought the house. It was barely visible. I forwarded the email to Marcus. He called me immediately. This is retaliation. She's going after you because you challenged her. No kidding. What should I do? Fix the crack, document everything, and lawyer up if she keeps going. I'm serious, Tyler. I've seen her do this before. She'll bury you in violations until you either give up or move out. I spent the rest of that Saturday getting quotes for driveway repair. The cheapest option was $300, so I would pay $300 to avoid a $200 fine. The logic was infuriating. On Sunday morning, I was watering my backyard with a hose I had bought from Home Depot when I decided to take a walk around the neighborhood. I needed to clear my head, and maybe I would get some perspective on this whole situation. I walked past several houses, waving to neighbors who were outside. Most of them waved back but didn't stop to chat. I got the feeling that people in this neighborhood kept to themselves, probably to avoid Patricia's wrath. As I rounded the corner onto Patricia's street, I saw something that made me stop in my tracks. There she was in her front yard, watering her roses, with my hose. My green hose with the yellow stripe that I had specifically chosen because it was easy to see in the grass. She wasn't even trying to hide it. I pulled out my phone and started recording video as I walked closer. She noticed me and immediately turned off the water, but she didn't move to hide the hose. "That's my hose," I said, still recording. "This hose was confiscated due to HOA violations. It's now being used for community purposes." Community purposes. You're watering your personal roses. These roses are part of the neighborhood beautification project. That makes them community property. Your front yard is not community property, Patricia. You stole my hose and now you're using it for your own benefit. That's theft. Her face flushed red. "How dare you accuse me of theft? I am the HOA president and I was enforcing community regulations. The regulations specifically exempt attached hoses. I sent you the documentation." "Your interpretation is wrong." "Then why are you using my hose instead of turning it over to the HOA board?" She had no answer for that. She stared at me with pure hatred in her eyes, then turned and marched into her house, leaving my hose lying on her lawn. I thought about grabbing it and taking it back, but I decided against it. I had video of her using it now. That was more valuable than the hose itself. I went home and immediately filed a police report online for theft. I included the video of Patricia taking the hose, the video of her using it, screenshots of my emails to the HOA board, and photos of the relevant sections of the HOA handbook. An officer called me back within an hour. "Mr. Graves, this is Officer Chen with the Scottsdale Police Department. I reviewed your report. I understand you're frustrated, but this appears to be a civil matter related to your homeowners association. We generally don't get involved in HOA disputes unless there's clear evidence of a crime. She took my property without permission and is using it for herself. That's theft. She claims she confiscated it under HOA authority. Whether she had that authority is something you'd need to resolve through your HOA process or civil court. I'm sorry, but there's not much we can do here." I thanked Officer Chen and hung up, feeling defeated. So the police wouldn't help. That meant I was on my own until the board meeting. The next 2 weeks were hell. Patricia sent me violation notices almost daily. My mailbox was 2 inches too far to the left. My front door wreath was not an approved color. My car had been parked in my driveway at an angle that violated parking regulations. On and on and on. Each notice came with a potential fine ranging from $50 to $300. I documented every single one, took photos proving that most of the violations were either false or absurdly petty, and saved everything in a folder on my computer. Marcus kept checking in on me. "You holding up okay?" "Barely. I feel like I'm being harassed." "You are being harassed." That's her strategy. She wants you to either give up or make a mistake so she can hit you with a huge fine. The board meeting is in 3 days. I'm going to lay all of this out and demand that they remove her as president. Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Just be careful. The other board members are scared of her too." The night before the board meeting, I couldn't sleep. I kept going over my presentation in my head, making sure I had all my evidence organized. I had printed out everything, created a timeline of events, and prepared a calm, rational argument for why Patricia had abused her authority. At 2 a.m., my doorbell camera sent me another notification. I grabbed my phone, expecting another middle-of-the-night violation photo session. Instead, I saw something that made my blood run cold. Patricia was back at my house, but this time she wasn't alone. There was a man with her, someone I didn't recognize. They were examining my front door, my windows, my mailbox. The man was taking measurements of something while Patricia held a flashlight. I watched the live feed, my heart pounding. What were they doing? After about 10 minutes, they left. I immediately downloaded the video and saved it to 3 different locations. This was getting scary. It felt like more than just HOA harassment now. It felt targeted and personal. The next morning, I woke up to find an official-looking letter taped to my front door. It was from something called Morrison Property Inspection Services, and claimed that my home had been inspected and found to have multiple code violations that required immediate attention. The letter listed things like improper drainage, structural concerns with the foundation, and potential electrical code violations. At the bottom, there was a note that repairs would cost an estimated $15,000. I recognized the company name, Morrison, as in Patricia Morrison. I called Marcus. She sent someone to inspect my house in the middle of the night, her own inspection company. This is insane. Tyler, you need to call a lawyer, right now. This has gone way beyond HOA petness. He gave me the name of an attorney who had helped another neighbor with HOA issues. I called as soon as the office opened at 9 a.m. The attorney's name was Jennifer Chen, no relation to Officer Chen. She listened to my entire story, asked me to email her all my documentation, and told me she would review everything before the board meeting that evening. Mr. Graves, based on what you've told me, Patricia Morrison may have committed several crimes including theft, harassment, and fraud. That inspection letter is particularly concerning. Do not pay them anything or sign anything. I'll meet you at the HOA meeting tonight. The board meeting was held at 7 p.m. in the community clubhouse. I arrived 15 minutes early with a laptop, printed documents in a binder, and a USB drive with all my video evidence. Jennifer Chen arrived shortly after, carrying a briefcase and wearing a sharp business suit. Patricia was already there, sitting at a table at the front of the room with the 4 other board members. She saw me walk in with an attorney and her eyes narrowed. Tyler, attorneys are not permitted at HOA board meetings per our bylaws. Jennifer smiled. Actually, Miss Morrison, Arizona state law allows homeowners to have legal representation at any HOA meeting where violations or fines are being discussed. You might want to review Statute 33-1808. Patricia's face turned red, but she didn't argue further. About 20 other residents filed in over the next few minutes, most of them looking curious about why an attorney was present. The meeting started with standard business, approving minutes from the last meeting, discussing the budget, and reviewing upcoming community events. I sat there impatiently, waiting for my turn. Finally, Patricia cleared her throat and said, "We have a violation matter to discuss regarding Tyler Graves of 42 Meadowbrook Lane. Mr. Graves has been cited for multiple violations including visible garden equipment, driveway damage, improper mailbox placement, and several others. Additionally, an inspection has revealed significant property code violations that must be addressed." I stood up before she could continue. "I'd like to address the board." Jennifer nodded at me encouragingly. I walked to the front of the room and plugged my laptop into the projector that was already set up. The screen came to life showing the first video from my doorbell camera. This is Patricia Morrison on October 2nd at 3:15 p.m., removing my garden hose from my property without permission. I played the video. Several board members leaned forward to watch. I heard murmurs from the other residents. Patricia claimed she confiscated the hose due to HOA violation section 7.3, subsection B, which prohibits visible garden equipment. However, as stated in the HOA handbook, permanently attached fixtures including hoses on spigots are specifically exempt from this rule. I showed the relevant page on the screen with the exemption highlighted. Despite being shown this exemption, Patricia refused to return my property. Instead, she claimed the hose would be held until this meeting. However, as this video shows, she has been using my hose for her own purposes. I played the video of her watering her roses. The room erupted in conversation. One of the board members, a woman named Sandra, spoke up. "Patricia, is this true? Did you take his hose and use it yourself?" "It was being used for community beautification," Patricia said tersely. "Your personal rose garden is not community property," I said. "This is theft." Jennifer stood up. "That's not all. Mr. Graves has been subjected to a systematic campaign of harassment following his initial complaint. In the past 2 weeks, he has received 14 violation notices, many of them for false or extremely petty violations." She handed out copies of all the notices with my photo documentation. Another board member, a man named Robert, flipped through the pages. A mailbox being 2 inches off center. "Patricia, this is ridiculous." "All violations are taken seriously," Patricia snapped. "There's more," I said. I played the video from 2 nights ago showing Patricia and the unknown man inspecting my house at 2 a.m. "This was taken 2 nights ago. The next morning I received this." I held up the inspection letter from Morrison Property Inspection Services. "Patricia sent her own inspection company to my house in the middle of the night and then tried to charge me $15,000 for fake violations." The room went silent. Jennifer spoke again. "Morrison Property Inspection Services is owned by Patricia Morrison's brother, Gregory Morrison. This appears to be a scheme to defraud Mr. Graves and possibly other homeowners in this community. I've already reported this to the Arizona Attorney General's office." Patricia stood up abruptly. "This is absurd. I was enforcing HOA regulations. This man has been hostile and uncooperative since day one. I moved in 6 months ago and had 0 issues until you stole my hose," I said. "Every problem has been manufactured by you." Sandra stood up as well. "Patricia, I've been on this board for 3 years, and I'm only now realizing that you've been running this HOA like your personal fiefdom. How many other homeowners have you harassed like this?" Several hands went up in the audience. Marcus raised his hand. An elderly couple in the back raised their hands. A woman with 2 kids raised her hand. More than half the room was raising their hands. "She fined me $500 because my grass was a 1/4 inch too tall," one man called out. "She tried to make me remove my bird feeder because it wasn't an approved color," another woman said. "She sent me violation notices for 3 months straight because I asked a question at a board meeting," Marcus added. The room erupted into chaos with everyone talking at once, sharing their Patricia stories. Robert banged a gavel on the table. "Enough. This meeting is getting out of hand. Patricia, I'm calling for an emergency vote to suspend you as HOA president pending a full investigation into these allegations." "You can't do that," Patricia shouted. "Actually, per the HOA bylaws, the board can suspend any officer with a majority vote if there's evidence of misconduct." "All in favor?" Sandra immediately raised her hand. So did Robert and the other 2 board members. Patricia was the only one who didn't vote. The vote passes 4-1. "Patricia, you are suspended as HOA president effective immediately. Please turn over all HOA property and records to Sandra within 24 hours. Patricia's face went from red to purple. "This is illegal. I'll sue every single one of you." "You're welcome to try," Jennifer said calmly. "But I should inform you that Mr. Graves is planning to file charges for theft, harassment, and attempted fraud. You might want to focus on finding yourself a good criminal defense attorney." Patricia grabbed her purse and stormed out of the clubhouse, slamming the door behind her. The room was silent for a moment, then everyone started talking at once again. Sandra banged the gavel. "Please, everyone, let's maintain order. Tyler, on behalf of the board, I apologize for what you've been through. This should never have happened. Your hose will be returned immediately, and all violation notices issued by Patricia in the past 6 months will be reviewed and likely dismissed." "Thank you," I said. "I just want my property back and to be left alone to live in my house peacefully." "That's more than reasonable," Robert said. "We'll be conducting a full audit of Patricia's actions as president and reaching out to any other homeowners who may have been affected. This community should be a pleasant place to live, not a dictatorship." The meeting continued for another hour as people shared their stories and the board took notes. It became clear that Patricia had been abusing her power for years, but people had been too afraid to speak up because she would retaliate with fines and violations. My willingness to fight back had finally broken the dam. After the meeting ended, at least a dozen neighbors came up to thank me. Marcus clapped me on the shoulder. "You did it, man. You actually took her down." "I just wanted my hose back," I said, shaking my head. "You got a lot more than that. You freed this neighborhood from a tyrant." Jennifer packed up her briefcase. "Mr. Graves, I'll be in touch about next steps. We need to decide if you want to pursue criminal charges or a civil lawsuit. Given the evidence, you have a strong case for both." I thanked her and told her I would think about it. Honestly, I was exhausted. All I wanted was to go home and sleep. But the Patricia saga wasn't over yet. The next morning, I found my hose returned to my front spigot, neatly coiled. There was no note, no apology, nothing. At least I had it back. I spent the day catching up on work that I had neglected while dealing with the HOA drama. Around 3 p.m., Marcus texted me, "Dude, turn on the local news." I turned on the TV and flipped to the local Scottsdale news station. There was Patricia on the screen, being interviewed by a reporter in front of her house. "Miss Morrison, how do you respond to allegations that you abused your power as HOA president?" "Those allegations are completely false," Patricia said, her face composed but strained. "I was simply enforcing the rules that every homeowner agreed to when they purchased their property. Tyler Graves is a troublemaker who has been hostile toward the HOA since he moved in. He's turned other residents against me with lies and manipulated video evidence." Manipulated video evidence. I felt my jaw drop. The reporter continued, "But we've spoken to several other residents who say you've been issuing excessive fines and violations. How do you explain that? Every violation I issued was legitimate and based on HOA regulations." "Some people don't like being held accountable for breaking the rules. I make no apologies for maintaining high standards in our community." I turned off the TV in disgust. She was actually playing the victim. My phone rang. It was Jennifer Chen. "Did you see the news?" "Yeah, I just watched it." "She's trying to control the narrative. I think we should hold a press conference and present your evidence publicly. Are you comfortable with that?" I thought about it. Part of me just wanted this to be over. But another part of me was angry that Patricia was lying on TV and making me look like the bad guy. "Let's do it," I said. Jennifer arranged for a press conference the next day at her law office in downtown Scottsdale. She contacted several local news stations and newspapers, and by the morning of the conference, there was significant interest in the story. I dressed in my best suit and drove to Jennifer's office, my stomach in knots. I had never done anything like this before. Public speaking wasn't my forte, and the idea of being on TV made me nervous. Jennifer met me in the lobby. "Don't worry, I'll do most of the talking. I just need you to confirm facts and answer basic questions. We'll show the videos, walk through the timeline, and let the evidence speak for itself. At 10 a.m., we walked into a conference room where at least 5 news crews were set up with cameras. Reporters filled the chairs, notepads and recorders ready. This was really happening. Jennifer started by giving an overview of the situation, explaining HOA laws in Arizona and how officers were supposed to operate. Then she played the video of Patricia taking my hose, followed by the video of her using it. The reporters were taking notes furiously. As you can see, Miss Morrison took Mr. Graves's property without legitimate cause and then used it for her own benefit. When confronted, she claimed she was enforcing HOA regulations, but the regulations specifically exempted the item she confiscated. She then showed the timeline of violation notices I had received, highlighting how they had started immediately after I challenged Patricia. The reporters asked questions, which Jennifer answered professionally. Then one reporter directed a question to me. "Mr. Graves, why did you decide to fight back instead of just buying a new hose?" I leaned toward the microphone. At first, it was about the hose. It was the principle of someone taking my property. But then, when Patricia started retaliating with fake violations and sent her brother's inspection company to my house in the middle of the night, it became about something bigger. No one should have to live in fear in their own home because an HOA officer is abusing their power. I fought back because someone had to, and I hoped it would help other people in my neighborhood who were too afraid to speak up. Another reporter asked, "Are you planning to file criminal charges?" Jennifer answered that one. "We're currently working with the Scottsdale Police Department and the Arizona Attorney General's office to investigate potential criminal violations including theft, harassment, fraud, and abuse of authority. We're also exploring civil remedies." The press conference lasted about 45 minutes. Afterward, several reporters asked for individual interviews, which I politely declined. I just wanted to go home. That evening, the story was all over the local news. Every station covered it, showing the videos and interviewing residents from Meadowbrook Commons. Marcus texted me a link to one segment where he was interviewed. "Patricia Morrison ruled this neighborhood like a dictator," Marcus said on camera. "People were afraid to hang a wreath on their door or park their car in their own driveway because they didn't know what she would find to complain about. Tyler stood up to her and gave the rest of us the courage to speak up too." My phone started buzzing with texts and calls from neighbors thanking me. Even people I had never met were reaching out to share their Patricia stories. It was overwhelming but also validating. I wasn't crazy. She really had been that bad. 3 days after the press conference, I got a call from Detective Sarah Martinez with the Scottsdale Police Department. "Mr. Graves, I'm the detective assigned to investigate the allegations against Patricia Morrison. I've reviewed all the evidence your attorney provided, and I'd like to ask you some questions." I met with Detective Martinez at the police station the next morning. She was thorough and professional, going through every detail of my interactions with Patricia. I showed her everything, walked her through the timeline, and answered all her questions honestly. "Based on what you've shown me and what we've learned from other victims, I believe we have enough to charge Miss Morrison with theft, harassment, and fraud," Detective Martinez said. "The inspection company scheme is particularly troubling because it appears she and her brother have been doing this for years to multiple homeowners. The Attorney General's office is investigating that separately." "What happens now?" I asked. "We'll be presenting our findings to the prosecutor's office. If they agree, we'll obtain an arrest warrant. That could take a few weeks." I thanked Detective Martinez and left, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and exhaustion. This had consumed my life for nearly a month now. I just wanted it to be over. The HOA board, now led by Sandra as interim president, reached out to schedule individual meetings with every homeowner who had received violations under Patricia's tenure. They were reviewing everything and dismissing most of the frivolous violations. They also announced that they were hiring an independent management company to handle HOA operations going forward, with much stricter oversight and limits on what any single officer could do. Life started to return to normal. I went back to focusing on my job, fixed a few legitimate minor issues with my house, and even started attending neighborhood barbecues. Without Patricia's reign of terror, Meadowbrook Commons was actually a nice place to live. People were friendlier, more relaxed, and there was a real sense of community developing. Then, exactly 3 weeks after the press conference, I woke up to a text from Marcus with a link to a news article. Former HOA president arrested on multiple charges. I clicked the link and read the article. Patricia Morrison had been arrested that morning and charged with 3 counts of theft, 1 count of fraud, 5 counts of harassment, and 1 count of extortion. Her brother Gregory was also arrested and charged with fraud and conspiracy related to the fake inspection scheme. According to the article, investigators had found evidence that they had defrauded at least 8 other homeowners in Meadowbrook Commons and possibly more in other communities where Patricia had held HOA positions. My phone rang. It was Jennifer Chen. "Did you see the news?" "Just read it." They actually arrested her. And her brother. The Attorney General's office found that Morrison Property Inspection Services had been systematically targeting HOA communities where Patricia had influence. They would create false inspection reports, charge exorbitant fees, and then split the profits. It's a pretty elaborate scheme. How much money are we talking about? Conservative estimate. Over $200,000 across multiple communities over 5 years. I whistled. That's insane. It gets better. Several other victims are coming forward now that arrests have been made. This could get much bigger. I wanted to give you a heads up that prosecutors will probably want you to testify at trial. Whatever they need, I said. If she did this to 8 other people just in my neighborhood, who knows how many others there are? Over the next few months, the case against Patricia and Gregory Morrison grew. More victims came forward from 3 other HOA communities in Scottsdale and Tempe. The prosecution built a strong case showing a pattern of abuse, fraud, and corruption. Patricia's attorney tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the prosecutor was pushing for jail time given the number of victims and the amount of money involved. I met with the prosecutor twice to review my testimony and make sure I understood the trial process. The trial was scheduled for February, about 5 months after Patricia had stolen my hose. By then, life in Meadowbrook Commons had completely transformed. The new management company was running things efficiently and fairly. Sandra had been officially elected as HOA president, and she was doing a great job. We even had a neighborhood block party to celebrate the changes. At the block party, an older woman named Helen approached me. "Mr. Graves, I wanted to thank you personally. Patricia fined me $3,000 last year claiming my roof needed replacement. She said if I didn't fix it within 60 days, she would put a lien on my house. I'm on a fixed income, so I had to take out a loan I couldn't afford. Now I find out the roof was fine, and it was all part of her scheme with her brother's inspection company." "Did you get your money back?" I asked. "The HOA legal team is helping me file suit against Patricia and her brother. They think I have a good case. But even if I don't get the money back, just knowing she can't hurt anyone else makes me feel better." I heard similar stories all night. Patricia had been terrorizing this community for years, and no one had known how to stop her. My stolen hose had been the catalyst that finally brought her down. The trial began on February 14th. Jennifer came with me for moral support, though she wasn't representing me anymore since it was a criminal case. The courthouse was downtown, a modern building with tight security. I was scheduled to testify on the second day. I spent the first day watching the prosecution lay out their case. They had done their homework. The evidence was overwhelming, video after video, document after document, victim after victim. When I took the stand, the prosecutor walked me through my entire experience with Patricia. I explained how I had been living peacefully until she stole my hose, how she had retaliated when I challenged her, and how the harassment had escalated to the fake inspection scheme. The videos were played for the jury, and I could see their reactions. They were disgusted. Patricia's attorney tried to make me look like a troublemaker on cross-examination, but it didn't work. The evidence was too clear. I had done nothing wrong, and Patricia had committed multiple crimes. The trial lasted 2 weeks. The prosecution called over 20 witnesses, including Marcus, Helen, Detective Martinez, and experts on HOA law and fraud. Patricia's defense was weak, basically arguing that she had been enforcing HOA rules and any problems were misunderstandings. The jury didn't buy it. After just 4 hours of deliberation, they came back with guilty verdicts on all counts for both Patricia and Gregory Morrison. Sentencing was scheduled for a month later. Jennifer called to tell me the prosecutor was recommending 18 months in jail for Patricia and 2 years for Gregory, plus restitution to all victims and probation. "That's it?" I asked. 18 months for years of abuse and fraud. "It's a white-collar crime with no violence, and she has no prior record. Honestly, any jail time is significant. A lot of defendants in these cases get probation only." The sentencing hearing was on March 21st. I didn't attend, but Jennifer went and texted me updates throughout. The judge had listened to victim impact statements from 12 people, including Helen. Then he sentenced Patricia to 24 months in jail, 3 years probation, and ordered her to pay full restitution to all victims. Gregory got 3 years in jail and 5 years probation. Judge said he was sending a message that abuse of authority in HOA positions would not be tolerated, Jennifer texted. Patricia cried. Gregory looked angry. They're both being taken into custody immediately. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. It was finally over. Life in Meadowbrook Commons continued to improve. The HOA board implemented new rules limiting the power of any individual officer and requiring board approval for any fines over $50. They also established an appeals process that was actually fair and transparent. I settled into my routine, focused on my work, and even started dating someone I met at a neighborhood coffee shop. Marcus became a good friend, and we started having weekly barbecues with other neighbors. One Saturday afternoon, about 6 months after Patricia's sentencing, I was in my front yard installing a new sprinkler system. I had gotten proper HOA approval, of course, though the process had been simple and straightforward under Sandra's leadership. A moving truck pulled up to Patricia's old house 3 doors down. A young couple got out, looking excited. I walked over to introduce myself. "Hi, I'm Tyler. I live down the street. Welcome to the neighborhood." "Thanks, I'm Amy and this is my husband Josh. We're so excited to be here." "The house is perfect and the neighborhood seems great." "It is great," I said honestly. "We have a really good community here. Friendly neighbors, reasonable HOA, nice place to live." "That's good to hear. We were worried about the HOA after reading some horror stories online." I smiled. We had some issues in the past, but they've been resolved. You'll be fine. If you ever have any questions or concerns, don't hesitate to reach out. We look out for each other here." As I walked back to my house, I noticed my garden hose attached to the front spigot. The same hose that had started this whole saga. I had thought about replacing it several times, but I decided to keep it. It was a reminder that sometimes you have to stand up for yourself, even over something as small as a stolen hose, because you never know what bigger problems you might solve in the process. That evening, the new HOA board sent out an email newsletter announcing several community improvements funded by money that Patricia had improperly spent on her personal projects over the years. The neighborhood was finally being run the way it was supposed to be. Marcus came over for dinner that night. As we sat on my back patio grilling steaks, he raised his beer. To Tyler, the man who defeated the HOA Karen, I clinked my beer against his. "I just wanted my hose back." "You got that and a lot more. This neighborhood is actually pleasant now. People are happy. You made that happen. We all made it happen. Everyone who spoke up, who shared their stories, who supported each other. That's what communities are supposed to be." "Deep thoughts from the hose warrior," Marcus joked. We laughed and enjoyed the evening. The Arizona sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. My yard looked good, my house was in order, and I finally felt at peace in my home. A few weeks later, I received a check in the mail. It was restitution payment from Patricia Morrison for the cost of my hose, time spent dealing with her violations, and a portion of the legal fees I had incurred. The amount was modest, about $800, but it felt like vindication. I also received a letter from the Arizona Attorney General's office thanking me for my cooperation in their investigation and informing me that they had filed additional charges against Patricia for similar schemes in 2 other counties. My case had opened up a much larger investigation. The letter concluded by saying, "Your willingness to document evidence and stand up against abuse of authority has helped protect countless other homeowners across Arizona. Thank you for your courage and civic responsibility." I put the letter in a folder with all the other documents from the case. Someday, maybe I would look back on this and laugh about the time an HOA president stole my hose and ended up in jail. For now, I was just grateful it was over. The neighborhood continued to thrive. Sandra proved to be an excellent HOA president, focused on actual community improvement rather than petty enforcement. She organized neighborhood events, improved the common areas, and created a real sense of community spirit that had been absent under Patricia's regime. 1 year after the whole saga began, the HOA board organized an anniversary barbecue at the community clubhouse. It wasn't officially celebrating Patricia's removal, but everyone knew that's what it really was. I showed up with a case of beer and my famous potato salad. The clubhouse was packed with neighbors, all in good spirits. Sandra gave a short speech about community, cooperation, and how far Meadowbrook Commons had come in the past year. "We've learned that an HOA should serve the community, not rule it," she said. "We've learned that rules should be applied fairly and reasonably, not as weapons. And we've learned that when one person has the courage to stand up against injustice, it empowers others to do the same. So thank you, Tyler, for being that person." Everyone applauded. I felt my face turn red, but I appreciated the recognition. It had been a difficult year, but it had also brought this community together in unexpected ways. As the party wound down, Helen approached me one more time. "Mr. Graves, I got my settlement check from Patricia and her brother. Full restitution plus interest. I'm paying off that loan I never should have had to take out. Thank you for making that possible." I'm so glad you got your money back, Helen. You deserved justice. We all did. And we got it because you didn't let her bully you. I drove home that night feeling genuinely happy. My little house in Meadowbrook Commons felt like home now, not a battlefield. I had good neighbors, a functional HOA, and peace of mind. The video doorbell that had started everything still hung by my front door, faithfully recording. But these days, it only captured ordinary things like package deliveries, neighbors waving hello, and the occasional cat wandering through the yard. My garden hose remained attached to my front spigot, in full view of the street, exactly where it belonged. No one bothered it. No one sent violation notices. It was just a hose, serving its purpose, causing no drama. Sometimes I would water my flowers in the evening and think about how different things could have been. If I had let Patricia keep the hose, if I had backed down when she started the harassment campaign, if I had been too afraid to fight back, the neighborhood would still be suffering under her tyranny, and who knows how many more people she and her brother would have defrauded. But I didn't back down. I stood up for myself, documented everything, and followed through. And in doing so, I had helped create positive change for an entire community. That was worth more than any garden hose. The story of HOA Karen who stole my hose became something of a legend in Scottsdale HOA circles. Jennifer told me that other attorneys were using my case as an example when helping clients fight HOA abuse. The local news did a follow-up story 1 year later about Patricia's conviction and how it had led to HOA reforms across the state. I was interviewed briefly for that follow-up story. The reporter asked me what advice I would give to other homeowners dealing with HOA problems. Document everything, I said. Keep records, save emails, use security cameras if you can. Know your rights and don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. Most HOA officers are good people trying to maintain their communities, but when someone abuses that power, you have to fight back. Not just for yourself, but for everyone else they might hurt. The reporter thanked me and the segment aired that evening. My phone buzzed with texts from neighbors who had seen it. Even people outside my neighborhood reached out to say thank you for speaking up about HOA abuse. As time went on, the intensity of the situation faded into memory. Patricia served her time in jail, was released on probation, and moved out of state. I heard through the grapevine that she was prohibited from serving on any HOA board as part of her probation conditions. Gregory also served his time and apparently started working construction when he got out. His inspection company permanently closed and license revoked. The victims, including Helen and myself, all received our restitution payments. The HOA board used reserve funds to help homeowners who had been forced to make unnecessary repairs based on fake inspections. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. Meadowbrook Commons became known as one of the better-managed HOA communities in Scottsdale. Property values increased slightly, and homes sold quickly when they came on the market. People wanted to live in a community with a reasonable HOA after hearing horror stories from other neighborhoods. I eventually got promoted at work, which I partly attributed to the confidence I gained from standing up to Patricia. If I could take on a corrupt HOA president and win, I could handle difficult clients and challenging projects. The whole experience had made me more assertive and self-assured. 2 years after everything happened, I was sitting on my back patio on a Saturday morning drinking coffee when Marcus came over. "Hey, remember when this all started? When Patricia stole your hose? How could I forget? It's crazy how much has changed. This neighborhood is completely different now, in a good way." "Yeah, it is. I actually like living here now. You ever regret buying here, given everything that happened?" I thought about it. "No, actually. If I hadn't bought here, Patricia would probably still be terrorizing people. Sometimes you end up in a place for a reason. That's very zen of you, Marcus laughed. But seriously, you did a good thing. People don't forget that. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, enjoying the morning. My garden hose was coiled neatly by the back door, ready for use. Such a simple thing, but it had changed everything. The rest of that day was beautifully ordinary. I mowed my lawn, washed my car, and grilled dinner. No violation notices appeared in my mailbox. No one took photos of my house looking for problems. No one stole my property. It was just a normal Saturday in a normal neighborhood, which was exactly what I had wanted all along. As the sun set that evening, I stood in my front yard and looked around at Meadowbrook Commons. Neighbors were walking dogs, kids were riding bikes, people were chatting on their porches. It was a real community now, not a police state. And to think, it all started with a stolen garden hose and a video doorbell that caught the theft on camera. Sometimes the smallest incidents lead to the biggest changes. Sometimes standing up for yourself over something minor protects others from something major. Sometimes justice actually prevails. I went inside, locked my door, and settled in for the evening. My house, my sanctuary, my home. No one could take that away from me, not even an HOA Karen with a bad attitude and a criminal mind. The video doorbell by my front door would keep watching, keep recording, keep protecting. But these days, there was nothing to protect against. Just peaceful suburban life in Scottsdale, Arizona, exactly as it should be. And my garden hose remained right where it belonged, attached to my spigot, visible from the street, in full compliance with HOA regulations that were now being enforced fairly and reasonably by people who actually cared about the community rather than their own power. Sometimes the good guys win. Sometimes bullies get what they deserve. Sometimes a simple act of standing up for yourself creates ripples that change an entire community for the better. This was one of those times, and I would never forget it.